Growing up in the early 2000s, my family never had cable. If it wasn't on physical media, we didn't watch it. So as a kid and even going into adulthood, I missed out on a ton of SpongeBob references that just flew over my head. My grandparents who did have cable would record our favorite cartoons like Scooby-Doo onto a VHS, and when they came to visit, they'd bring us the latest episodes. Growing up during our most formative years, we benefited from not having access to flipping channels because we actively chose what we watched growing up. Being fed whatever the networks decided to air that day is today's equivalent of mindlessly scrolling or going on streaming services and seeing what is on Netflix this month. Each time we wanted to watch a movie, we had to go through the motions of picking it up off of the shelf, reading the back, looking at the cover, and had to physically put the DVD or tape into the player and hit play. At some point in the early 2010s, this relationship to media consumption kind of went away in my life and a lot of our lives in exchange for relying on streaming services. And now there are people out there like you watching this video, and myself included, that are trying to change our relationship to media by making it more intentional. My name is Chris, and this is Nomad Over Normal, a channel where we dive deep into the departure of a conventional lifestyle and focus on living with intention. Thanks for participating in this community today. One reason that my family never did get cable growing up is because we made the jump to streaming services relatively early on. It was around 2008 to 2010 where we started getting DVDs in the mail from Netflix. And not too long after, Netflix started streaming their movies and TV shows. And I was, of course, the first person in my entire school to cut the cord. That wasn't a term at the time. And at the time, it was also seen as weird not to have cable. One of the first shows that I ever binged while watching was the TV show 24. Binging wasn't even a word at the time. I binged all of 24 episodes in literally 2 days. And I did it from my phone. For the first 5 years, Netflix had pretty much anything you ever wanted. The latest movies came out on streaming around Academy Awards time, and the DVD service was still in full swing. Somewhere along the way, the selection dwindled. And as a new streaming service popped up with whatever show that we wanted to watch, we'd subscribe to that too. And it was justifiable to me during this period because at the time, I was trying to live more intentionally and minimize my possessions. So I was like, okay, if I don't have physical media and I rely on these streaming services, then I have less clutter in my house. And as content on these streaming services became more diluted and you had these new alternative streaming services pop up and stealing content from the home base of Netflix, that reasonability factor sort of went away. And it was during this period where I kind of went back into getting Blu-rays and DVDs, but I didn't fully commit to that because I didn't want the physical clutter, and I was also using streaming services. And out of laziness, I would never watch my DVDs because the amount of effort that you had to put in to take out the disc and place it in a DVD player, it wasn't automatic on my phone or my laptop. And then somewhere around actually the time that I discovered the library and I made that video, that was the catalyst that snapped me out of this. And I was like, you know what? We're gonna stop this over-reliance on streaming services because my local library had a better library of DVDs and Blu-rays, but there's also the good feeling of having your own library at home. Now, I'm not a collector in the traditional sense where I care about preserving something's value. I want it to watch and consume, not to resell or look good on a shelf. So what I did was pull the trigger on a CD binder and I took down all of my DVDs, I threw out or recycled the cases and kept the discs in sleeves. That might sound sacrilegious to a lot of collectors, but it allowed me to keep my physical media and consolidate the space that it took up, giving me permission to keep it. The other day, I went to my library and they were having a sale. You could bring a reusable bag and for $10 you could fill it up. And so I did just that. I looked through all the DVDs and I zeroed in on movies that I never heard of, like really good 80s and 90s thrillers. And I knew these movies would never come up on Netflix, and I didn't want these movies to be forgotten in time. I filled up an entire bag. I got 42 DVDs, and more than half of the movies I never heard of, let alone seen. And yeah, I could have filled up my bag even more, but I didn't. And the reason I didn't was because because I had enough. I don't need to become a collector for the sake of being a collector. I just wanted to own the type of movies that I wanted to own, and I don't need to hoard anything. And so now that I'm using physical media, it changes the relationship not just with what I consume, but where I consume it. Now, going back to when I grew up watching things on VHS and DVDs, those players were always located in the central part of the house, the family room. So literally every night, my family would gather around the TV and we would watch our favorite shows. That's something that's sort of unheard of now, because with streaming services, it removed the need to have that centralized place, and anyone could watch anything they want anywhere they want. And now in my house, I never needed to upgrade my TV because I never used it to watch media. It was always on the phone or laptop. But by committing to physical media, I had to reassess my setup and figure out how I can make a communal place in my home again. Now, of course, the first thought is to get a very nice OLED 4K TV, but I thought back to one of my DVDs, 2001: A Space Odyssey. I wanted to have my first experience with this Stanley Kubrick movie to be on a projector in a theater. And I told myself one day that I would move into a house and make a theater system. But of course, because my relationship with streaming never progressed in any way, and I never took my media consumption seriously, I was kind of a zombie, that dream never happened. Orzen saw my library video and wanted to hook me up with their Boom 3 projector so that I could have a better relationship with physical media. The first thing I actually displayed was the trailer for The Batman. And the first thing I noticed when I projected it just on my wall wasn't the picture quality, it was the sound. And I've been a filmmaker for over 10 years now, and I always say that a movie is 70% sound. During a horror movie, in a scary scene, you don't cover your eyes, you cover your ears. You could watch a found footage movie, you could watch something that doesn't have the best cinematography, and you could forgive that. But you can't forgive really bad sound. So even earlier when I was talking about the desire of creating my own home theater system, one thing keeping me from doing that is the expense of creating your own surround sound environment. But the thing is, that's gatekeeping a lot of people from enjoying projectors, because projectors aren't known for having good sound. But Orzen and their Boom 3 projector changed that. It's called the Boom 3 because they want it to serve as your TV, a streaming device, and a Bluetooth speaker. So after I got my popcorn ready, it was time to finally watch 2001: A Space Odyssey. Watching my first movie on a projector in my house was the coolest thing. I've never had a screen this big. And in a nice dark room at night with booming sound, this was 100% the best movie watching experience I ever had outside of a theater. We actually set up our Nintendo Switch and we were playing Mario Kart and Animal Crossing. And when you look at these really expensive OLED TVs, sure, you have these amazing crisp images, but it's sort of like listening to music on vinyl versus listening to it on a CD. In my experience, there's just a certain feeling that having a projector in the room gives you that makes the experience unique. So if you're somebody that is interested in having their own home theater experience, the barrier to entry is really small. It's literally half the price of other expensive projectors and significantly less expensive than OLED TVs. I'm gonna leave an Amazon link down below with a special coupon code for you. And by the way, Orzen, thank you for being my first sponsor. In a lot of ways, subscribing to a bunch of streaming services seems like a great option because you can have access to a lot of media that you otherwise would never buy. It looks like you're simplifying your life, but really you're just paying for an ongoing service that never ends and continuously gets worse as they revoke or cancel your favorite TV shows. Are we really just zombies that accept whatever Netflix and the streaming gods want us to watch? I speak a lot about subscription services and the death of ownership on this channel, and if you want to check it out, you can click on this video right here. Don't forget to hit that like button on your way out.